Hello, and welcome to my channel, Miss Charlotte. My doctor gave me feminizing pills without me knowing. Have you ever felt completely lost, like something inside you is just missing? I'm talking about that feeling where no matter how much you try to push through the days, there's a part of you that doesn't quite fit. You go through the motions, wake up, work, eat, sleep, but something inside you feels off. Not just off though. It's like you're walking around with a shadow over your soul. You know what I mean? That was me. For so long, I felt like I was walking through life, but never really living it. Something was wrong, and I couldn't put my finger on it. I wasn't unhappy exactly, but I wasn't happy either. And I kept asking myself, why does everyone else seem to have it figured out, and I don't? What happens next? Well, it's something I never expected. You won't believe it at first, but it's real, and trust me, it might just change everything you thought you knew about yourself. It definitely changed everything I thought I knew about me. But here's the thing, I didn't know it at the time, but the answer to all of this confusion had been right in front of me. I just couldn't see it. So let me backtrack for a second. Meet me. I'm a regular person, nothing special, nothing extraordinary, just trying to get by. I've always been the kind of person who kept things inside. My friends would call me quiet, introverted, a little hard to read. I guess that was true. But if you asked anyone who knew me, they'd say I was fine, the kind of person who doesn't really stir the pot. But that's not the whole story, is it? It's not just about what people see on the outside. Now, here's the twist. I went to see my doctor a few months ago, just for a regular checkup. Nothing major. I wasn't feeling sick or anything, just curious. You know how it is. Get a checkup every once in a while, make sure things are running smoothly. But something weird happened that day. I wasn't prepared for it. My doctor, Dr. Stevens, who I had been seeing for years, handed me a prescription for a new medication, feminizing pills. Now, let me stop right there and ask you, have you ever felt that gut punch of something you didn't ask for? Like, how the hell did this happen? That's exactly how I felt. You might be thinking, hold on, did I hear that right? Because, trust me, I did a double take when she handed me that prescription. I mean, I was in my 30s, never really questioned my gender identity, never really thought about what it meant to be masculine or feminine beyond the obvious. But there it was. This small piece of paper that was supposed to somehow make me more feminine. At first, I thought it was a mistake. I mean, come on. Me, feminine. I wasn't even sure I needed these pills. But Dr. Stevens just smiled like everything was perfectly normal and assured me, it'll be good for your overall well-being. I didn't question it. That's just the thing. I trusted her. Maybe I thought she knew better than I did. Or maybe I just didn't want to rock the boat. And then I took them. What happened next is what changed everything. But here's the kicker. At the time, I didn't know it would change anything at all. I didn't even realize the pills were doing anything. But when I look back now, I can see it so clearly. The real question is, why did I take them without asking more questions? Why didn't I feel anything at first? Or maybe I did. Maybe I just didn't want to admit it. What I didn't know then was that this was just the beginning of a journey that would make me question who I was, who I thought I was, and maybe who I wanted to be. What if, all along, I had been searching for something I didn't even realize I was missing? And what if this pill, the one I never asked for, never even knew I needed, was the key to finding it? But here's the kicker. I didn't just change on the outside. It wasn't just about the physical changes. It was what was happening inside me. Something deep, something unexpected, something that I wasn't prepared for. The more I took the pills, the more I felt different. But it wasn't just a surface thing. I was starting to see myself differently. I was starting to feel different. And trust me, when I tell you it was a struggle, I'm not exaggerating. I mean, I couldn't even figure out if I should be scared or excited. Because once it starts, you can't go back. And that's the part I didn't expect. This wasn't about just taking a pill. It was about discovering a whole new side of myself that I had buried deep down, a side I wasn't ready to face. So, do you want to know what happened? Do you want to know what I found out about myself? Stick around, because the real story's only just begun. But the truth is, I still don't know if I'm ready to accept everything that's happened. Let me tell you a little about myself. Well, who I was before everything got turned upside down. My name is Alex, and I've always been the kind of person who liked to keep things simple. I didn't chase after big dreams or flashy goals. I was just content. You know, the kind of person who looks around and says, "Hey, life's fine. Things are good enough." But deep down, something was missing. Something I couldn't even put into words. I've been in the same job for years, doing the same thing day after day. I'm a graphic designer, good at what I do, sure, but the work's predictable. Every morning, I wake up, sit down at my computer, and churn out the same old designs. It's like my mind was stuck in autopilot, going through the motions without any real excitement. You know how it feels, right? Like you're stuck in a loop? You're just existing. I look at my reflections sometimes and think, who am I becoming? Not who I was, that's easy enough to figure out, but who I'm becoming. The future version of me. And honestly, I didn't like what I saw. It wasn't that I hated my life. It's just that there was this nagging feeling that something deep inside wasn't being addressed. Meet Sarah, my wife. We've been together for 10 years. She's amazing, always supportive, always there for me when I need her. And I love her, truly. But even with all the love, something felt off between us. I'd see her in the kitchen in the mornings, and it was like she was living her own life while I was somewhere else. And I wasn't even sure where I was anymore. You know how couples can fall into this rhythm of just being, without really living? We've got our routines, eat dinner, watch TV, go to bed. Sure, there were moments of closeness, but it felt more like a partnership of convenience than the passionate connection we had when we first met. I felt like I had no one to talk to about this, no one who would truly understand. My friends, they'd think I was crazy. I mean, what would they say if I told them that for months I'd been thinking there was something inside me I needed to change, but I didn't know what it was? Would they laugh? Would they tell me to just man up and get over it? Because that's the kind of stuff people say, right? That's the kind of stuff I heard all my life. And that's the thing. Growing up, I was taught that men are supposed to be strong, decisive, straightforward about who they are. No questions asked. You just be. You don't get to question what's inside you. You don't get to wonder if maybe there's a different version of yourself you're supposed to be. So I pushed those thoughts away. I told myself I was being ridiculous. But the truth is that I didn't feel like a man, not in the way society had told me I should. It wasn't about my body or the fact that I was supposed to love things like football and cars. It wasn't about any of that. It was deeper. It was this feeling that I wasn't being true to something about myself that I couldn't even identify. And then there were the days when I'd be sitting at my desk, staring at a blank page, and I'd feel this deep ache inside me. Like I was about to break out of this prison of normal life, but I had no idea how. I wanted to feel something real again. I wanted to feel alive, not just on the surface, but deep inside. I wanted to know who I truly was. What did that even mean? Was I just having a midlife crisis like everyone told me? You've heard of midlife crisis, right? But what if I was having something deeper? A crisis of identity, a yearning for change that went beyond my job, beyond my relationship, beyond the things I could see. A desire to change the way I saw myself. I didn't want to just be the guy who was stuck in a routine. I wanted to discover who I was, even if it was terrifying to face that truth, even if it meant questioning everything I thought I knew. So here's the thing. This is the part where my journey starts, and it's the part I wasn't ready for. I didn't know it at the time, but this was going to be the catalyst for everything that would follow. What I didn't realize was that I was about to be pushed into a world that would make me confront things I had kept hidden for so long. I wasn't just looking for excitement anymore. I was looking for something I couldn't even put into words. Let's talk about something that's been gnawing at me. how society shapes us. There's this unwritten rulebook that men have to follow. It's like you're born into this mold of what it means to be manly, and if you don't fit into it, something's wrong with you. We're supposed to be the ones who do, who fix things, who take control, who suppress feelings because that's what strong men do. But what happens when you start to question that mold? When you don't feel right in it anymore? I started wondering, am I not just questioning the mold? I'm questioning the whole concept of who I am, the very core of my identity. And how do I even begin to understand what I feel when I've spent my whole life pushing that feeling away? But here's the thing. When I started thinking this way, I wasn't alone in this feeling. I had Sarah, of course, and while she didn't know what was going on in my head, she could feel the distance growing. There were days when I'd pull away from her, when I'd become distant, almost like I wasn't even present anymore. We'd have our normal conversations, but it felt like we were both talking about the same thing without really getting it. That's the thing about relationships, right? You can love someone, but if you're not connected on a deeper level, you start to drift. And that's where I was, drifting. And no matter how much Sarah wanted to help, I didn't know how to tell her what I was going through. So there I was, lost, not knowing who I was, not knowing where I was going, but knowing one thing for sure. Something was about to change. Something was pushing me, though I didn't know exactly what it was yet. Something deep inside me was stirring. And this was the moment I would either ignore it or face it head on. So yeah, this is where my story begins. I'm about to step into a journey I didn't ask for, and I'm not sure what it'll bring. But I do know one thing. This is the first step toward discovering who I truly am. Even if it scares me, even if it changes everything. It started slow. I wasn't even sure anything was happening at first, but there was this sense of quiet, like the noise in my head, the constant questioning, the restlessness. It all started to fade. I woke up one morning, took the pills just like the doctor told me to, and went about my day. At first, there were no dramatic changes. Nothing physical, nothing that anyone else could notice. But inside, it was different. I felt a calmness I hadn't felt in years. That anxiety I used to carry around like a weight on my shoulders. Gone. It wasn't like I suddenly felt happy or carefree, but for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like I was drowning in my own head. I wasn't angry anymore, either. I'd spent so much of my life frustrated, pushing through things that didn't feel right, always restless, always wanting more but not knowing what that more was. But this sense of peace was new. It wasn't just physical. The pills weren't some magic cure, but something about them started shifting me in ways I couldn't explain. I noticed myself becoming more open, not just with others, but with myself, and I'm not sure if I even realized what that meant at first. One night, Sarah commented on how much quieter I'd become. She'd always been the talkative one, and I'd just sit there, nodding along, maybe adding a few words here and there. But now it was like I had to process things before speaking. My thoughts weren't jumbled, they were clearer. When I looked at Sarah, I saw her in a new light. Not that I didn't love her, of course I did, but I started realizing how much I'd been holding back, how much of me had been locked inside because I didn't know how to express it. "Is everything okay, Alex?" she asked one evening, a hint of concern in her voice. Yeah, I'm just thinking," I said, trying to sound casual. But the truth was, I was thinking about everything, how my body was starting to feel softer, how my thoughts weren't the same, how my heart was feeling more open. I couldn't tell her what was going on inside me. Not yet. I wasn't even sure what was happening myself. But then, a few weeks in, something happened that caught me completely off guard. I noticed it one morning while getting ready for work. I was putting on my shirt, and I felt the fabric against my skin. It felt different, softer. I looked in the mirror, and my reflection wasn't the same. My face looked slightly different, my features softer. And then my arms, those arms that had always been solid, muscular, were less defined. I didn't know whether to be alarmed or relieved. It was like I was becoming someone else, but it wasn't a bad thing, or at least not in the way I thought it would be. It felt natural, like I was shedding a layer of myself I hadn't even realized I was carrying. But at the same time, I felt disoriented, like I was looking at a stranger in the mirror. The changes were subtle, but enough for me to notice. My skin was smoother, my body less tense. I'd catch glimpses of myself in windows or reflective surfaces, and each time, there was this moment of shock, like I was still getting used to the person looking back at me. And yet, despite all these changes, I still wasn't sure how I felt about them. There was this part of me that was terrified. What if I was becoming someone I didn't recognize? Someone I didn't even want to be? But then, there was another part of me, this quiet part that whispered, what if this is exactly who you're supposed to be? It didn't help that no one else seemed to notice. Sarah hadn't said anything about my physical changes. And the truth was, I wasn't sure if I even wanted her to. I didn't want to explain what I couldn't fully understand myself. I wanted her to see me as I was, without all the layers of confusion and uncertainty. But as the days went by, I started to feel different in ways that I didn't expect. The way I looked at people shifted. I became more sensitive, more aware of my own emotions. I didn't feel like I had to hide behind this shell of manliness anymore, but that left me with this raw vulnerability I wasn't sure how to handle. One evening, I was at dinner with Sarah, and she asked me, "Are you okay? You've been acting a little off, more quiet, distant even." I wanted to say something. I wanted to explain it all to her, but I couldn't. I couldn't find the words. Part of me was afraid she wouldn't understand. But the bigger part, this part I hadn't even known was there, was terrified that if I said the wrong thing, it would all fall apart. I nodded, forcing a smile. "I'm fine. Just tired, you know." But inside, I was anything but fine. The pills, the changes, everything was pushing me to face something I wasn't sure I was ready to confront. The transformation wasn't just physical. It wasn't just about my skin or the way my body felt. It was about the way I was seeing the world and myself. I was beginning to question everything, and it was both exciting and terrifying at the same time. There were moments when I felt like I was on the edge of something big, but I couldn't figure out what. It wasn't just about the pills anymore. It was about something deeper, something that had been buried inside me for so long that I wasn't sure if I was ready to face it. But I couldn't stop now. I had to keep going, even if I didn't know where this journey would take me. Because if I didn't, if I stayed where I was, I knew I'd never find the answer to the question that had been haunting me for so long. Who am I really? It hit me in the quietest of moments, like a sudden wave I didn't see coming. I was standing in front of the bathroom mirror, my hand paused mid-air, combing through my hair. It was one of those mornings when everything felt off, not in a bad way, but in a way that made me look at myself and finally see the change that had been happening slowly, almost imperceptibly, until it wasn't slow anymore. I was different. I could feel it in my bones. As I stared at my reflection, it wasn't just the softer features, the smoother skin, or the way my body had changed. It wasn't just the fact that I had started to wear clothes that felt more comfortable, more me. It was something deeper, something that went beyond the surface. I wasn't just looking at a new version of myself physically. I was seeing someone I barely recognized emotionally. Mentally, the calm that had been settling in me, the emotional openness, the rawness. It was like something was peeling away the layers I had built up my whole life, and I didn't know what was left underneath. I reached up and touched my face, my fingers lingering on my cheek. The skin felt softer. The angles of my jaw, less sharp. The muscles in my arms weren't as pronounced, and yet I felt stronger in some other way. I didn't look like the man I thought I had to be anymore. I looked different. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't just about the changes to my body. It was about what all of it meant. What was I becoming? Who was I becoming? I thought back to all the years I had spent trying to be the person everyone else expected me to be. The person who fit into the mold of what it meant to be a man. The one who was supposed to be strong, unemotional, always in control. The one who was supposed to hide the parts of himself that didn't fit. But here I was, standing in front of this mirror, looking at a reflection that wasn't just physically different, but emotionally raw, vulnerable. I felt like I had opened up this space inside me that I wasn't sure I could close again. And that scared the hell out of me. Was this what I truly wanted? Or had I become someone I didn't even recognize anymore? I thought about Sarah, how she had supported me through all of this without question. But even she didn't know what was really going on inside me. She didn't know how much I was changing, how deeply this was affecting me, how I was starting to wonder if I'd even fit into the life we'd built together anymore. What if she couldn't accept this new version of me? What if the person I was becoming wasn't the man she had married? I could feel the weight of all these questions pressing on my chest. The fear was overwhelming, and in that moment I realized something profound. I had no idea who I was becoming, but I knew I couldn't go back to who I had been. It wasn't just about the pills anymore. It wasn't just about the changes I could see in the mirror. It wasn't about clothes or body or appearance. It was about acceptance. It was about learning to love who I was, no matter how different that was from who I thought I had to be. It was about giving myself permission to be whoever I was meant to be, without guilt, without shame. I felt tears well up in my eyes, not out of sadness, but out of relief. I'm still me, I thought. But I'm finally allowing myself to be all of me, even the parts I had hidden away for so long. The realization hit me with the force of a storm. I wasn't becoming someone else. I was finally becoming the person I was always meant to be, and that meant accepting all of me, the parts I had buried, the parts I denied, and the parts I was still figuring out. The transformation wasn't just about my body. It wasn't about fitting into someone else's idea of who I should be. It was about the emotional freedom to step into my own truth. Whatever that truth looked like. I turned away from the mirror, my heart pounding, my mind spinning. I didn't know what would come next. I didn't know how Sarah would react when she saw the changes, or how the people around me would handle this new version of me. But one thing was clear. I wasn't afraid anymore. I had spent my life running from the idea of change, terrified of what it might mean. But now I was ready to embrace it. I was ready to finally be me, in every sense of the word. Because the only thing I had truly been missing all along was me. And maybe, just maybe, the world was ready for me too. I spent so much time worrying about who I was supposed to be. The right man, the right partner, the right everything. I thought I had to fit into a box, follow a path that was laid out for me by expectations, by society, by all the voices telling me what I should look like, who I should love, how I should act. But the truth is, no one tells you that the most important journey is the one inward. The pills weren't magic. The physical changes weren't the point. They were just symptoms of something much deeper. The real transformation happened when I started listening to myself, when I allowed myself to feel, without shame, without fear of judgment. When I let go of the idea that I had to be someone else to be loved, to be accepted. I learned that the hardest part isn't changing your body, your clothes, your appearance. It's changing how you see yourself. I had to face that I wasn't just changing on the outside, I was changing on the inside too. And maybe that's what scared me the most. Realizing that the only thing holding me back all this time was myself. I was the one who had to give myself permission to be who I really was, not who anyone else thought I should be, not who I thought I was supposed to be, but just me. And when I finally embraced that truth, when I stopped trying to hide parts of myself, I found something beautiful, something I didn't even know I was missing. The journey to self-acceptance. It's not easy, but it's the only journey worth taking. If there's one thing I hope you take away from this, it's that the change you're looking for, whether it's inside or out, it begins with one simple thing: you. It's about giving yourself permission to be exactly who you are, no matter what the world says. Maybe you're on a journey like mine. Maybe you're still figuring out who you are, or what it means to be true to yourself. But trust me, you're not alone. We're all in this together, learning, growing, and finding our own paths. If this story has made you think, made you reflect on your own journey, then hit that like button, share it with someone who might need to hear it, and subscribe to hear more about this ongoing journey of self-discovery. Because at the end of the day, we're all just trying to figure out how to love ourselves, just as we are. And maybe, just maybe, that's the most important thing we can do. The journey doesn't end here. Not for me, and not for you.